It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to our town hall meeting for Region 7. Region 7 is an incredible region. Of course, all the regions of the National Bar are incredible, but Region 7 has the Cook County Bar Association, one of the oldest, largest affiliate chapters of the National Bar Association. And even though Region 7 encompasses other states other than Illinois, and we're going to hear from some of the honorees from those other states, I just wanted to say that Region 7 is near and dear to the hearts of all NBA members because of the contributions of these extraordinary members over the years. Tonight, we are honoring living legends beyond living legends. People who have been extraordinarily supportive of the National Bar Association, who have been stellar in their careers, who have made so many contributions to their communities that they had to be elevated by us and recognized as living legends. And as my grandmother always said, you know, don't do for me when I'm 6 feet under, because she just broke it down that way. Do for me when I'm alive and when I can thank you for what you're doing for me. So we really are thanking these living legends tonight. And I want to also thank Ellen Douglas for her extraordinary work that she does in the region, has done for so many years, been on the board of governors for a long time, contributing, asking questions, elevating the bar of the National Bar. And we salute you, Ellen Douglas, and thank you for all of that. To Taisha Miley, thank you for just all that you've done in planning this particular town hall and other town halls. You know, the thing about our town hall series, and the town hall series came about with our desire to want to recognize our phenomenal members of the bar during COVID, because we wanted to have some way of connecting, some sense of community. So to all who are going to be honored, I want to congratulate you. I salute you. We stand on your shoulders. And to our chaplain, Judge Sonia Natasha Brown, I want to say welcome and thank you. I know you're going to give us words of inspiration, and so that you will set the tone the right way for this very moving tribute to our living legends in Region 7 of the National Bar Association.
What an honor it is to be here with Region 7 and to always be in the presence of my dear sister, our president, C.K. Hoffler, and with all of the amazing attorneys and doctors and community organizers who are here to share. And so it is my pleasure and always an awesome responsibility to come to bring an invocation. And so I invite you all to join me in a moment of prayer. O most gracious and wonderful God, on this day, we come first giving thanks for who you are, for what you are in our lives, for your presence in the midst of this town hall. We thank you for all of those who have organized it, all of those who have come to share, all of those who are here to learn so that they can go out and be beacons in the community, beacons in the society where they can share what it is that they have learned. Oh Lord, as we come, I pray that you will keep our thoughts this evening, that you will grant us wisdom as we do our work, that you will guide the work that we do, that you will order our footsteps and keep us in all that we do. Oh Lord, I pray that you will cover our communities as we work towards creating a healthier community and helping to dispel the myths that would keep us from complete and whole wellness. We give thanks for and honor to these panelists who have come to offer wisdom and provide a calming spirit as we come with questions and even some anxiety, that you will grant us all peace and comfort in the midst of this season of so much uncertainty. I pray that you will bless our president, Madam C.K. Hoffler. Keep her, cover her, and give her strength as she continues to lead us through this time. And for all who organize this Region 7 Town Hall and all who are members of Region 7, I honor you. I ask God to bless you, God keep you, God to grant you strength in all that you do. It is in the mighty name of his Son. It is to whom I offer this prayer. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Oh, thank you so much for giving us word tonight. And we all need it. Before we jump into the program, I wanted to just say a word about Akua Kapak. Akua has been my chief of staff, I want to say for 2 years. I just don't even know. We've been working together for so long in connection with MBA activities that it's hard for me when it began. And I know that it's never going to end because of her undying commitment to the MBA. But I've got to applaud her, recognize her, because come rain or shine, Akua is always on point. She's always there to make sure that I am where I need to be. And Akua, thank you for all of your education, for all that you've done, for all of the organizing, for all of whipping us into shape. That's what she does for me, to make sure that we are on point and we move ahead the mission of the National Bar Association. So I know that you're going to talk about Gertrude Rush. I just had to pause for a moment while you and recognize you and say thank you again. Just thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know that you and Maisha are going to say a little bit, or Taisha are going to say a little bit about the Gertrude Rush conference that is coming up. So I just couldn't be in the zone or the aura of Akua Kapak and not say thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, President Hoffler. I believe Akua is on the program, but I think I've been tasked with informing the membership about the upcoming 41st mid-year conference and Gertrude Rush Awards. They will be held virtually, as all conferences this year will be. This one is based out of Atlanta, as that was our original meeting location. The conference will be held from April 9th to the 11th, so it begins next Friday and it concludes next Sunday. We have a robust and dynamic panel discussion lined up for those 3 days. Some of the panel topics, of course, in line with the 3 pandemics that you, President Hoffler, have sought to address this year: COVID-19, which we're also addressing this evening, police brutality, and voting rights issues. So I engage all of those in attendance this evening to please spread the word. If you have not registered, to encourage others to register. There will be a significant amount of community engagement and calls to action, as well as information around those topics, as well as the awards presentations and opening and closing plenaries. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you there.
Wonderful. Well, before I hand over the podium, if you will, to our regional director, Ellen Douglas, I wanted to salute and congratulate, just by name, the people who you'll hear more about: Wiley Adams, Sharon Strickland, Karen Freeman Wilson. You know, in our tradition, we say call their name, and I'm calling their name: Nathaniel Lee, Judge Carr Darden, Patricia Brown Holmes, and Justice Shelvin Hall. I'm calling your name because I'm calling into existence what I'm calling an induction into the Hall of Living Legends for the National Bar Association. Chair Douglas, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So good evening. My name is Ellen Douglas, and I am the Regional Director of Region 7. Region 7 is comprised of the states of Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. And it's amazing that in almost a year now, I've not seen some of you at all, and I've missed all of you. But we're looking forward to moving forward and moving the bar ahead of us. I want to thank you to President C.K. Hoffler for her hard work and her vision in deciding that the region should host town halls during her bar year. Region 7 was delighted to answer the call. Thank you, President Hoffler. The topic for tonight is one that is pretty personal to me, because I suppose you could say that I was a poster child for the vaccine hesitancy. Back in November, in October, November, when we were with a president that I didn't necessarily trust, I was very concerned about the rush to get this vaccine done. And so I had some hesitancy about whether or not, when it was all said and done, I was going to actually take the vaccine. But today, I'm a very proud vaccine holder. I've had successful 2 doses of Moderna. I didn't have any side effects that were to speak of. And I am now able to speak and encourage others to take the vaccine as well. As I would talk to members of the community, well, why aren't you taking the vaccine? What's holding you back? It was really a lot of fear of the unknown. It was, some people were saying, well, they had religious reasons as to why they weren't going to take the vaccine. Others were concerned about what the government was doing to us. I have a practice involving guardians and disabled persons, and even in the nursing homes where we lost so many people from COVID, the nursing home staff was refusing to get vaccinated. And when you looked at the nursing home staff, you would see that most of those persons were Black workers, some from other countries, but primarily Black workers. They weren't taking the vaccine either. So I realized that this was a pretty serious matter. And I realized it was even more serious when this past Sunday, following church, I was sitting and watching my virtual service. There was a PSA that was put together by 18 Black pastors here in the Chicago area, which I'd like Kyle to show us now, to show how serious this is and how everybody is now recognizing we've got to get people to take the vaccine.
You deserve to be healthy. You deserve to live life abundantly.
You deserve to live life to the fullest.
You are a gift. You are a blessing.
You are God's child. God gave us one body.
One body.
It is our duty to take care of our temple.
For our temple is our body.
Our body is our temple.
COVID-19 is devastating our community.
73,000 Black women and men have died.
500,000 families plan funerals
Instead of planning birthdays.
500,000. 500,000.
500,000. 500,000.
The best protection against COVID-19 is to wash your hands,
wear a mask, and get vaccinated. Protect yourself. Protect the one you love. Honor the gift of life given to us by our Creator. Stay safe and get vaccinated. Peace.
So this is a PSA. Hopefully you can hear me as the names go by. This is a PSA that was put together by 18 African-American pastors on the south and west sides, and actually the north sides of Chicago. Because never in our respective lifetimes have we had such a danger as this COVID disease is, and what we need to do. That pastors are now recognizing that we have to bring it to our communities and to the attention of everyone, because no one has experienced this before. So the hesitancy is out there. And tonight we're going to talk about what we can do to dispel that hesitancy. So I would like to turn it over to our moderator to start us off. Our moderator tonight is Sharice Frazier. Sharice is the chair of the NBA's Health Law section, which is one of the premier and robust sections of the National Bar Association. And by the way, a section is a group of lawyers who come together, organized in a particular substantive law. And so we have many, many, many lawyers who are engaged in the practice of health. Sharice is a shareholder in the Indianapolis office of Hall, Render, Killian, Heath, and Lyman. She concentrates her practice in the area of general health law. She's working for a variety of healthcare entities on a wide range of matters, including clinical services, patient care, data management, electronic, anything related to health. Sharice has put her fingers on it, and she is bringing us our panel of distinguished moderators this evening. So thank you very much for being here tonight. Sit back. We think it's going to be a very enjoyable process for you. Please feel free to ask questions. I believe you can do it through the chat feature or the Q&A feature, whichever suits you best. But let's have a full and challenging discussion tonight about dealing with the hesitancies of the vaccine. Sharice?
evening, everyone. Thank you, Ellen, and good evening, everyone. I am, much like everyone else, honored this evening to be with our group of attorneys and our esteemed panelists for the evening. And so as we get ready to start this very important discussion regarding vaccine hesitancy in the African American and Black community, as well as the discussion regarding, what can we do to make that change? I want to first introduce our panelists, and I'm going to start with Dr. Dara Richardson Heron. Dr. Dara Richardson Heron, she's a physician by training, but she's an advocate by choice, right? And I think that's extremely important. She has 25 years of a career that spans academic, government, for-profit, nonprofit sectors, and now she serves as Pfizer's Chief Patient Officer. She leads the company's work to advance patient-focused programs and platforms with a global understanding and responding globally to the communities and to reducing healthcare disparities. And so we know that her insight and expertise is going to be valuable for us this evening. So we're looking forward. Thank you for being here. Also on our panel this evening, we have Dr. David Blackwell. And Dr. David Blackwell is the Senior Director in Drugs and Safety and Research and Development within the Worldwide Research and Development Medical Division of Pfizer, where he serves as the General Toxicologist Lead, and he has over 30 years of experience in drug development. And Dr. Blackwell contributes to Pfizer by assessing and communicating safety concerns throughout the life cycle of a drug and vaccine. And so here again, we have great expertise, years and years of expertise in working in patient advocacy and communities. But last but not least, as Ellen pointed out, we've had to bring our pastors, we've had to bring our spiritual leaders into this conversation because it's that serious to our communities. And so we also have on the panel Reverend Michael Hayes, who's a chaplain at Loyola University Medical Center. And Reverend Hayes, not only does he work at Loyola, but he's been doing outreach community efforts in the Chicagoland area. And primarily over the last year, so since March of last year, he's been spending a lot of his time working on COVID, just trying to work with the Department of the Community Health and Wellbeing and helping to organize discussions about the various aspects of the pandemic. And as you can imagine, that presently he's working on building that community resilience and trying to build confidence in the vaccine because we're seeing this hesitancy. And so as we get ready to kick this discussion off, I want to start with Reverend Hayes, because I know he's been out there in the community and that he has been seeing firsthand kind of some of the challenges. And so I want to start with asking him just a little bit about his efforts in the community. So share with us what you've been doing in the community, and then also share with us what you are seeing in terms of obstacles for African Americans being able to get the vaccine or understand the importance of the vaccine. Dr. Hayes?
Well, thank you, Attorney Frazier, and thank you to the National Bar Association Region 7 and the leaders of it, and in particular, Attorney Ellen Douglas for her personal invitation for me to be here tonight. And I think that this forum is an excellent, excellent choice for the National Bar Association. And I hope that it spawns even more conversation around the country amongst our community for ways that we can compel and encourage members of our community to get out and get this vaccine. I am an overnight chaplain at Loyola University Medical Center, as you mentioned. And as such, there are two types of caregivers at the time that I work overnight. We have, and at night, a lot of our administrative efforts are not in function. So it really focuses on patient care. And we have two principal roles. We have the healers, the doctors, the nurses, the respiratory technicians of all sorts, and we have the comforters, and that would be our chaplains. And we care for our patients as well as their families. And I have seen quite a bit of suffering in this past year of 2020 going into 2021 because of this pandemic. It has been horrific at times. It's been overwhelming. I've seen caregivers who are seasoned in their profession crying, exhausted, worn out. And it has been a story to tell. Because of our efforts to address the suffering in our community, my efforts as an outreach chaplain, meaning I work as a clinician in the hospital, but I also dedicate some of my time, clinical time, to reaching out to the community. I had to pivot. My focus beforehand had been mostly on the issue of gun violence, but I had to pivot to this pandemic because of the numbers we were seeing. And everyone, I think, who's been around, who's been awake during 2020, have heard such difficult stories about, trucks that are turned into morgues and exhausted caregivers working round the clock. We had those same circumstances in our hospital. So we started focusing on how could we support the community surrounding our hospital. And we, in doing that, we encountered some obstacles. And what I've learned from our efforts to support our surrounding community is that we have had to listen, learn, and adapt. We have had to change our focus from what we originally thought would be the obstacles and learn from the community and then adapt to their evolving needs. Initially, our focus was to increase vaccine confidence because I think we had internalized the narrative that African Americans do not want vaccine. And we had to learn that that was not necessarily the attitude or the thought of our community. The community that my hospital serves is, our service area is comprised of really 7 community areas, and the population is over 60% Black or brown. And so we were sensitive to what their needs, what our needs are in the proviso community, and yet we had to learn a lot. So one of the things we learned was through our listening sessions that lack of supply, challenges to the seniors in our community as they grapple with technology requirements and trying to schedule themselves for vaccination, transportation, fear, and funding were the biggest obstacles that we faced. So we're learning and evolving. We're certainly, I would say, as we look at the service area that we are focused on and we're trying to get vaccinated, I think that some of the low-hanging fruit has been picked, but I think that in order for us to continue to turn out these numbers that are getting us all excited that, hey, one day we can see the finish line, we know that we're gaining momentum, But in order to get to that, that finish line, I think we're going to have to innovate and pick higher fruit on the tree, which means, you know, we're going to have to be more aggressive and make sure that supply is there. Originally, we kind of looked at models like the excellent model of Dr. Ayla Stanford in Philadelphia. But what we've learned is that our community is heterogeneous, and we're not just an urban context. So we've had to adopt some of the strategies of Carla Brown in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who has pulled together some healthcare workers and are walking door to door to get those who are shut in and can't get to a vaccination center. We're learning that we have to be adaptable in that way. Hope that answered your question.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's been very informative. And I think, you know, as you are describing some of the obstacles and challenges, that's certainly what we are seeing across the country, right? It's not just one factor that's causing hesitancy. There are compounding factors that's causing the hesitancy for the vaccine. And so we will have to think of some innovative ways. And I want to come back to you on that thought. But as we get ready to move forward, I want to talk a little bit about, let's give the audience some facts about, you know, the vaccine. And so Dr. Blackwell, I want to jump over to you. And the first question, you know, with 30 years of experience in drug development, can you just kind of describe to us how the Pfizer vaccine was created and kind of what's in the vaccine?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you all very much for allowing me to come back again to the NBA. I had opportunity to be on a panel earlier this year with Dr. Leon McDougall from the NMA, which was an awesome experience, and just really appreciate all that you do at the NBA and outreach to your community. So, and I also want to give a shout out to my home state of Illinois. I'm a proud son of the land of Lincoln. Little far south than Chicago, like 400 miles on the Ohio River, a little town named Metropolis. My mom of 97 years old is still there, along with two of my siblings. So it's always good to hear from home folks in Illinois. But to answer your question, so about the how do we get here, basically, with the vaccine. So I'll speak a little bit about the Pfizer BioNTech experience. We have been working together as a companies for a little while, a couple of years actually, looking at flu vaccines. And when COVID-19 came into existence, we thought it was a really great opportunity to use that platform of the messenger RNA for the COVID-19 vaccine. So the work started in the laboratory, and we did our preclinical work as well, which I'm responsible for in Groton, Connecticut. So I'm a long way from home, but keeping it down here in Connecticut. And then we were actually able to progress into our clinical trials. And so all three of the vaccines that are approved, of course, have emergency use authorization. For Pfizer, it's for age 16 and over. For BioNTech, I think is 18, and the same for J&J. But talk about the robustness first of the clinical trials. So the clinical trials actually had about 40,000 participants for the Pfizer vaccine, the Pfizer BioNTech. For the Moderna, it was around 30,000, and for J&J, around 40,000. So just in the size of the clinical trials themselves, we're talking over 100,000 people. Of course, half of those were on placebo, but we're still talking about a very robust number of individuals. In addition to the clinical trials now, we have over 100 million people who have been vaccinated with the with COVID vaccine. So the safety database is quite large now, and so I think how we got here was pretty quick, just because of the urgency of the matter. In addition, we did a lot of things in parallel, which we normally do in sequence, and so that helped with the speed. And I know that was one of the concerns that Councillor Douglas mentioned with her hesitancy at first, as to how do we, get so fast to the vaccine. And so a lot of things has happened that we were already working on, as well as the fact that there were risks that were taken because of the urgency. So And you asked about the components of the vaccine. So for the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, it's the messenger RNA, which is basically a slight coded sequence of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And so that genetic material is enveloped in an envelope of lipid, and that enters the cell. And then in the cell, it's released, and then basically your body starts to make antibodies against that spike protein for the SARS-CoV-2, which is where the messenger RNA takes place. So the messenger RNA is a sequence of that spike protein from the virus itself. It's not active virus, it's just a coded sequence from that virus. And then your body starts to make antibodies against that coded sequence or that from that spike protein. So basically, if you were to get exposed after being vaccinated, then your body would recognize that spike protein from the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and then those antibodies that have already been produced would attack the virus and kill it. So that's how it works. I know your question was a little bit more narrow than that, but that's kind of an overarching response to how we got here and how the vaccine works against the virus and the components of the vaccine.
So now this question has come up a number of times as you talk about the mRNA. How is that going to impact an individual's DNA? People are concerned. I think originally folks were concerned that, hey, I don't want to be injected with the virus. And now this is a little bit different. So can you talk to us about that component of it as well?
Certainly. So again, there's no live virus part of this messenger RNA. So what happens is, I said, this messenger RNA is encoded in a lipid that gets released into the cell. And then the cell, it's actually the cytoplasma cell, not the nucleus, where the DNA reside in the nucleus. And so there's no way that that can happen to get through that nuclear membrane to get into your DNA. So therefore not alter your cells in any form or fashion, other than to teach your body how to make those antibodies against that spike protein and then therefore kill the virus. So it works by teaching your immune system basically how to react and not alter your actual cells themselves or your DNA. I hope that answers the question.
No, I think that's very, very informative. And so we appreciate that information. So Dr. Richardson here, and I want to turn to you now. So because you are a physician and an advocate, can you talk to us about why the vaccine is safe, or, tell us why you've taken the vaccine and why you would encourage your patients or others to do so too, as you advocate for them?
Well, thank you for the question, and also thank you for the opportunity to be here today. As my colleague David said, millions of people, actually over 100 million people in the United States have received this vaccine. In order for a vaccine to even get to the point of an emergency use authorization, it has to undergo intensive safety monitoring. And this, is both internal to Pfizer and external. At Pfizer, although we understood how serious a pandemic was, vaccine safety was and continues to be our #1 priority. We work very closely with the clinical trial sites. Our clinical trials have been going on for a long time, and there are experienced investigators and regulatory agencies worldwide who are focused on ensuring high quality and safety standards are rigorously applied to our program. A lot of people think back to the days of Tuskegee and the syphilis study, when we didn't have places like institutional review boards, whose main role is to ensure that the study participants are not exposed to unnecessary risks. Our trial's progress is closely monitored by both Pfizer and an outside third-party group of experts, and they're called a data monitoring committee. And we would halt the trial if we were to find that the vaccine candidate did not work, or particularly if it had harmed participants. And it's not just a one and done. The people who are part of the trial actually are followed up over a period of 2 years. And they're supposed to report any symptoms that they have so that we can track it. And to your point of why did I take the vaccine? I took the vaccine because it is clear to me, after seeing so many people dying, particularly Black and brown people, it's clear to me that this is a virus like no other. And as a physician, I clearly saw that people were dying even on ventilators. And, you know, when you see that, that lets you know that this is a serious, serious virus that ravages your body. You know, we can keep people alive on ventilators for months, years, but this virus is so serious that even on a ventilator, people are not living. So for me, it was very clear. It was an easy choice. I wanted to live. And I wanted to take care of my temple, as the pastor said in the video. And certainly I share that with any people who I come in contact with. You know, this is a virus like no other. And certainly with the disproportionate impact that we're seeing in our communities, sometimes due to some of the comorbid conditions that and disparities that we already have, unfortunately, with high blood pressure, diabetes, lung disease, heart disease. But no matter what, Black and brown individuals are dying much more frequently than any other race. And I'm not ready to die. And so once the vaccines I know are safe and effective, I knew that I wanted to take the vaccine. And I encourage others to do so as well.
So just a follow-up question for you, because you are a healthcare provider too, or a physician, you know, reading some of the statistics out there, most recently, I think it was reported that over 40% of healthcare providers are choosing not to take the vaccine. And you know, as Helen mentioned, I work with healthcare providers on a regular basis, have for over 20 years. And so that just seems shocking to me when I read that statistics, knowing, you know, what they've been dealing with on the front lines of this thing. So can you give us any insight into that?
Yeah, you know, this troubles me so much. But you know what? There are many reasons for this hesitancy. But in general, you know, let's face it, healthcare workers are hesitant about the vaccine for the same reasons that some members of the general public are hesitant. I mean, there is a real distrust in the healthcare system in general. You know, and I hate to admit it, but with good reason. I mean, the healthcare system hasn't always treated Black and brown people fairly. And so that distrust, you know, extends to, you know, a willingness to take a vaccine. One of the speakers earlier mentioned the political environment. That lends itself to a lot of trust. There are concerns about the speed of the vaccine development. And the approval process, and the concern that the vaccine may not be effective or may pose risks, and the reality that you know we don't know everything. We're all learning a lot about this virus and the vaccine, but it's so critical that we engage healthcare providers in the same respectful, authentic, bi-directional way that we engage the public, and understand that there's no one size fits all to approaching individuals and understanding what their reasons are. Our goal is to meet them wherever they are. And that's what Reverend Hayes said. We have to figure out how to meet them wherever they are in their journey. And also, it's also important for us to address healthcare workers, first to make sure that they're protecting themselves and their families. But let's face it, you know, healthcare providers are necessary, not just to provide care and treatment, but you know, study after study has shown that multicultural leaders and figures of authority, healthcare workers, you know, our faith-based community, people in, you know, Greek organizations really can have a positive influencing factor for many. And I shudder with this data about healthcare workers, because it certainly doesn't help us, you know, build confidence in others if healthcare workers are not trying to take it. But again, their reasons are the same as the general public. But the reality is, I think it's important for us to figure out what their concerns are, not shame them, not make them feel less than or wrong, but to meet them wherever they are. And what I found more often than not is when you know, really get to the root cause, or really take time to understand, you really can help people get beyond, you know, some of their concerns. I will tell you one of the most striking pieces that I've seen in some of the polling data recently is that, the people who I would have expected to be most fearful of a vaccine would have been older, people of color, right? But the data is actually showing that older people of color are signing up, and they know about Tuskegee, they know about Henrietta Lacks, they know about, the Havasupai tribe. It is the younger population that is really showing more of a distrust. So I think if we can convince people who were around during the time of Tuskegee and Henrietta Lacks to get vaccinated, I think we just need to dig a little harder and figure out what we can say to others who were still not quite sure. I would also just say one last thing. I agree that I don't want to buy in so much to the narrative around the hesitancy in our communities. I've seen our communities have to stand on long lines and to have to, figure out a way to use the technology in a way that I think others haven't faced, similar to voting. And I hate to bring it to that level, but the bottom line is, I think, many of our community are moving from hesitancy to frustration with the system and their inability to have access. So I think we want to figure out how best to address that.
I think that's great feedback. And I love the comment, when you talk about the healthcare workers, I think sometimes people will put, you in a different category, but at the end of the day, you're human, right? And you will have the same concerns and fears. And you also have families to think of and all those things that everyone else is having. So I think that's a very good point to make, and that people should take consideration of, they're going through the same thing that you are, but really at an even heightened level, because they are seeing it in ways that we, in the general public is only viewing through television and things of that nature. So I thought that was awesome. Dr. Hayes, I'm going to jump back to you because I'm sorry, Reverend Hayes, I'm going to jump back to you. Dr. Richardson Heron kind of raised this issue of trust. And I know that you've been working in the community and trying to develop and build trust. And you started in a little bit earlier on some of those innovative ways that trust can be built or things can be done to try to kind of combat this hesitancy. So tell us a little bit about how you've been handling that trust factor, and then what are maybe some of those innovative ways you think will help us move the needle forward.
Well, thank you. Yes, in our community, we know that there are some influencers in our community that really make a difference. This panel discussion tonight began with a PSA, and who was picked for the PSA? Pastors and spiritual leaders, because our community resonates with trusted voices of people that know God. And so I was not surprised, but I thought it was a tremendously powerful piece to encourage people by giving them the word of God, saying, your body is your temple. And you have to take care of it. And here's a way that's available to all of us to take care of God's temple. Avail yourself of this opportunity. Take the vaccine, learn about the vaccine. You will see that it is efficacious and safe. In our community, well, let me put it to you like this, because I think there are some obstacles that we really have to overcome. There is a dominant narrative that African Americans do not want to take vaccine. But if I came on this panel discussion tonight and I said to you, wash your hands, maintain social distancing, don't congregate in crowds, especially indoors, wear a mask. And if that was all I said, by the time I got to wear a mask, everybody would have tuned me out, because after a year, we have heard that message and we have heard that message. That message does not resonate with people anymore. And in our community, I think because of the damaged trust. Just reciting talking points just doesn't cut it. So as we were contemplating how to get a message out to our community, one of the innovations that we came up with was, how do you speak to people so that people don't tune you out and your message gets received? Is there a way to persuade people? Is there a way to capture people's attention? And what I came up with is use a narrative arc, because we are storytellers. Chaplains are storytellers. And so I did some soul searching as I thought about the past year. And I asked myself, what messages have I resonated with as I've looked at the news and tried to discern fact from fiction. I want to acknowledge that there have been people in this panel discussion who have brought up some serious realities in doing that, just that. The political environment has been fraught with a lot of misinformation, disinformation. And as a consumer of the news, how do I discern what's fact from fiction and which choice I should make? And I found that the most compelling messenger that I looked for whenever I was looking at the news, the person that I said, if anybody's telling the truth, that person is telling the truth, were those doctors and those nurses that were coming out of their hospitals after working a 12 or 16-hour shift, and they were exhausted, and they were sharing with reporters what they saw inside. As a chaplain, I can tell you two quick stories that changed and shaped my thoughts about this pandemic. There was so we have a COVID ICU at Loyola Hospital. And in our COVID ICU, I was called to come to the side of a family because the patriarch of their family was in the hospital, was on a respirator and was not doing well. And the nurses thought he may not make the night. So they made the call to the family. Can you come and be by his side? Under normal circumstances, we don't let we didn't at that time let family enter the COVID ICU unit because it's just so, we want to protect people from being exposed. But we made the exception when we saw a patient close to death. And here was the family huddled around so that they could see in the room, and separated by the glass doors, they could say their goodbyes. Of course, they were full of tears, and they were suffering. After I spent some time with them and prayed with them, I saw the nurse who was taking care of that patient, and I spoke with her, and she said to me, the saddest thing about this whole situation, as if, you can calculate degrees of sadness. She said, but this one thing stands out. The patient's daughter, grown woman, living with her parents, decided she wanted to go to the hair salon. And in going to the hair salon, she found out that her stylist was COVID positive. And she blamed herself. Because her father was very careful not to leave the house and not to be exposed. So she quite naturally concluded that she had infected her father. And the worst thing about it to her was her personal persecution was that she had infected him and would never have an opportunity to tell him how sorry she was. Another story that stands out is there was a couple driving through Chicago from Washington, D.C., just driving through the town, but they both felt ill and went to the hospital, our hospital. They were both COVID positive. And so here you have a couple, and they're in different rooms in the hospital. And the wife and husband, they could communicate with each other through their phones. Over the overhead paging system, the husband heard us call out the room number of his wife. And he could not leave his room, and he could not see about her. And she ended up passing away. Those stories from these trusted caretakers, caregivers, make a tremendous impact. And we wanted to capture the real passion of these healthcare workers to come in and work every day and take care of people, and knowing that they are trusted members of the community. Anybody that would do that, gown up, put on all the PPE, and go in and risk their lives to take care of your sister, your uncle, your daughter, your grandfather. That's somebody that I want to hear from. So we developed a communication piece using a comic book to reach out to people, tell that narrative story about how hardworking our healthcare workers are and what they're looking at and what they're hoping for, and how they see that if we continue to push and do what we need to do, we can make it through this, and we're very, very close. So we're launching that as part of our canvassing effort in the community, giving out this comic book, having it available online, allowing people to see the story, these very compelling stories from the inside of the hospital.
No, thank you for that. You know, I think those stories are very compelling. They're heart-wrenching. And, you know, each time I hear something of that nature, you know, it saddens me. And the fact that, you know, the number in the PSA kept saying 500,000, you're celebrating all of these funerals and not birthdays and things like that. But I think one of the issues that still is out there, so we hear these horrible stories, and now we have this vaccine that's available for us, and we have folks that are hesitant to take it. And one of the big reasons is well, if I'm at low risk, why would I take that when I hear that it's going to make me sick? And so I want to throw this out there to Dr. Richardson here and again. So, you know, is the vaccine going to make me sick? Why would I do that if I'm a low risk person, if I'm already, you know, fairly well? And even if I'm not, many folks have complained about various different, you know, the side effects that they've had from the vaccine, minor things, right? However, people are hesitant because they believe that the vaccine will make them sick. And so what would you say to that?
Well, I would first say that the vaccine cannot cause you to get COVID. That is a myth out there, that people feel that, you know, if you get the vaccine, you will get COVID. And so our vaccine is, as David described it, is a vaccine that does not use any live part of the virus, but a very small portion of the sequence. And again, to teach your immune system how to protect you from the virus. So not only does this vaccine not cause you to develop COVID, but no vaccine can cause a patient to develop the disease against which they're vaccinated. Now, it is true that you may have and experience side effects. Some people have experienced some side effects after receiving the vaccine, like the most common are a pain at the site of the injection, fatigue, headache, muscle pain, chills, joint pain, fever, swelling at the site, and some site redness, nausea, just feeling blah. And some people have even reported enlargement of the lymph nodes. And while all of these things are uncomfortable, certainly being in a hospital on a respirator or dying is not the outcome that I would expect anyone to want. And I'm not being dramatic here. I think we've all seen the reality. So the reason why you want to take the vaccine is because one, the vaccines that are out there are very, very effective at preventing you from hospitalization, serious illness, and death. And that doesn't even speak about what we call the long haul symptoms that are happening in people, symptoms of inability to taste and smell and things that we don't even know about, even in young people that last for months and months and months. So the reason why you want to take it is that you don't want to get COVID. We know what COVID does, to most people. And it's generally not good, even if you have a relatively mild case of it. So you want to take it because you want to prevent yourself from having serious disease and death. And also, you want to protect those around you. The story of that Reverend Hayes talked about, I mean, I don't know if I could live with myself if I were the person who caused a death in someone who I loved.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think that's very important. I think that's very important. And so, again, as we continue to have this conversation, I think just getting some of those myths out there dispelled tonight is going to be really, really important. And so, Dr. Blackwell, I want to turn to you and ask the question regarding natural immunity versus being immunized by the vaccine. Lots of folks say, well, I think I'm going to wait for natural immunity. We've heard the concept of we're waiting for that herd immunity to happen. Can you provide some insight into that so that we have clarity about that particular issue? And then the other piece I want to ask is that if I'm someone who already had the virus, do I need to even get vaccinated?
Great questions. I will start and I'll ask Dr. Dara to come in if I forget something that's important. So to answer the question about, I guess, natural immunity versus vaccination immunity, both are being studied as we speak, and we're learning about both of them, right? But I believe the current CDC guidance is that even if you've had COVID, as long as you're not having currently active disease, i.e., fever and those kind of clinical signs, that they recommend that you do get vaccinated. And the reason is that it just seems to have a better immune response. And again, teaching your cells how to, the antibodies that are produced by the vaccine seem to be more robust than those that are from natural infection. And going back to Dr. Dara's comment as well, is that we don't know, right? When you get infected, if you were to get infected with natural disease, so to speak, what your reaction is going to be. Yes, you may be quote unquote at low risk, but we just don't know. You don't know what your condition or your sequela later on are going to look like. So again, since you're not getting active virus with the vaccine, it just makes sense to me as a scientist that you would want to have an immune response that's robust as possible against a virus that seems to be so infectious and disruptive. And then you also asked the question about herd immunity, I believe. And so basically, in order to achieve that, we need, somewhere, and again, the number is going to kind of change based on how these variants work out, between 83 and 90+% of individuals vaccinated or having antibodies against the virus. So that's a very large number. Again, was 240 million people, I think, in the US, something around that. So we're talking about a lot of folks who have to get vaccinated. And that's basically to protect those who can't get vaccinated for whatever reason. They don't have that option of being vaccinated. We have to protect those. And again, part of my passion is public health, and that's the public part of public health is, right, we don't just do it for ourselves, but we do it for those that are around us who for whatever reason can't can't also have the ability to get vaccinated. So it's important that everyone who can get vaccinated should get vaccinated for themselves, for their loved ones, as Dr. Dara said, as well as for the public that we don't know, right? We are our brother's keeper.
Great, and I would just respond to the question I think you asked, if someone has had COVID before, should they get vaccinated? And the answer is yes, because of what David said. I mean, we just don't know how long, a person may be protected from getting, COVID again after recovering from COVID. So, it's possible to be reinfected with the virus even after you've had it the first time. So, yes, if someone has had COVID before, they should get the vaccine, and they should really talk to their doctor about the right timing for that.
Perfect. I think that's very helpful as well. I think one of the other questions, so Dr. Richardson here, and you mentioned that the clinical trials that took place. Can you tell us about the populations of people? Again, some of the questions that I continue to get is that, how do I know that it's going to work for me, right? And as we talk about our community, what did those clinical trials look like in terms of diversity?
Yeah, I mean, clinical trial diversity is something that's near and dear to my heart. Just before coming to Pfizer, I was working on President Obama's initiative that he announced in 2015, at the State of the Union address, called the All of Us Research Program. And the whole goal of that program was to make sure that there was diversity in clinical trials so that, we can benefit, from research and research advances. Most studies, unfortunately, were done for most of the medications that many of us take they were tested in older white males. And so therefore it's hard to know, the impact on those in our community. So, and then underrepresentation makes it really difficult for researchers and physicians to understand how medications impact people of diverse backgrounds. So that's why I'm so excited that at Pfizer, we were very intentional about including people from all walks of life to make sure that our trial was diverse. And we did that by, number one, selecting trial sites within diverse communities. And we worked closely with those sites to understand their needs and to make sure that they were pulling in the communities locally and increasing awareness locally to individuals who are most likely to be impacted by the virus. But we also did something else. We partnered with a range of multicultural grassroots organizations as trusted messengers to raise awareness and understanding about the need for increased diversity in clinical trials. And we held virtual events, public service announcements. We had videos. We called it, one of our videos was Undoing Underrepresentation. And it had, multicultural individuals saying that, we really need to be represented in diversity in trials. And we created materials in multiple languages. We co-created materials working in partnership. We all know the phrase, nothing about us without us. So we work with communities and individuals and ask them, what would you want to see in a publication or a flyer or in a PSA that would really, make you want to participate in trials? And the great news is that because of our efforts, approximately 42% of our global trial participants were from diverse backgrounds, and 30% of our US participants were from diverse backgrounds. And that includes 10% in the US, African Americans. And I think we all know that the African American population is about 13% of the US population. I will tell you that 10% number is a big deal. Most studies don't have anywhere close to that. We had 6% Asian, 13% Hispanic or Latinx, and 1.3% Native American in our US trials. These numbers are really, really great. It's so important because we had people who look like us in the studies. And so we know that the virus has been tested in people, unlike many of the medicines that most of us take today. So I'm really proud of this accomplishment, and we certainly want to leverage our learnings from this and apply it to our future trials. But definitely our trial included people with diverse backgrounds, and that was a mandate. The other trials also did as well. So that's really was one of the most heartwarming things for me to know that there was such an all-out effort to make sure that we were represented, particularly given the disproportionate impact in our communities.
Great, great. Thank you for that. And that's certainly what I've been hearing. That was a huge push, unlike any other time that a drug has been being created, to make sure that those trials had a representation so that we could truly see the impact it was going to have on all. So I think that's very, very important. I want to ask too, and this may be for either of you, Dr. Blackwell or Dr. Richardson here, and the question about if someone has already had the vaccine, is there, already had COVID, does it matter which vaccine they take, a single dose versus a double dose? Does it matter, or just get vaccinated? Come on. Okay, so question I was throwing out there. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you now, but the system, it just keeps going down.
Did it shut down?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was me.
Yeah, I thought it was me, but no, everybody's supposed to
okay, everybody went down.
Yeah.
Kyle, if we're doing something wrong, please let us know. But I think the question that I was trying to get out there was that, if you've already had COVID, does it matter which vaccine you take, or will any of them be just as effective?
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, the recommendation is, take the vaccine that is available to you. And it doesn't, matter, if you've had COVID before. I think it's just important for you to get a vaccine, the vaccine that's available to you.
Okay. And do you guys know if there's any studies that are out there right now or underway with respect to healthcare workers? We talked about healthcare workers a little bit earlier today, who've been consistently around positive COVID patients. Are they being tested for antibodies, or is there any studies that we want to that's underway in that realm to just see how our healthcare workers are being impacted?
Yeah, in fact, the CDC just put out a study, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, that really brought in what we call real world evidence. And it shows that the vaccines are truly protecting individuals working on the front lines, of the COVID pandemic. So the CDC just, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and they put out information, really great information, showing that, unlike in a research, in a clinical trial, sometimes things are controlled and it's a little bit different, but they actually evaluated hospitals in about 8 states. And they showed that the vaccine is really working for healthcare workers. So really, really good. I urge people to look it up on the CDC website. I just saw it the day before yesterday, I believe.
Now, I want to go back to a point, Dr. Blackwell, that you mentioned early on. I think at the beginning of our session, we talked about how the vaccines all currently have that emergency use FDA approval. Now, based on that, is all of the vaccines that people are receiving, so that 100 million number, are those going to be considered part of the clinical trials and the numbers in there, or is that something completely different?
So again, I will attempt to answer this question, but I will ask my esteemed colleague, Dr. Richardson Huron, to back me up in case I misspeak. So as she said, the clinical trials are designed, people are enrolled, and people are followed. I think the only way that we will know about those individuals, the 100 million, is basically if there's any adverse events, right? So people are encouraged, and sites are encouraged to report any adverse events through the safety systems that are available. But as far as actually tracking people, which of course was one of the concerns that people had about the vaccine, am I being tracked? Is there something in there that's gonna, that's not something I know about, right? But that's not the case. So the only way that we would know would be based on, on any adverse events and not necessarily anything else, as far as my understanding. Unlike clinical trials where those individuals are being followed for 2 years subsequent to their starting the trial, so they will be continually monitored. But individuals who are part of the 100 million that are not a part of a clinical trial would not be.
Sorry, thanks for that clarity, because I think that's a very important point. I think that's also some of the discussion that's been out there. People have been thinking, am I now a part of the trial? But I think you have made that very clear that if you were going to be a part of a trial, you would be enrolled and there would be a process that you would follow rather than just going to your local vaccine clinic and getting that vaccine. So I appreciate that clarification.
And I'll just add one piece to that, just because it is important to the things that we talked about with distrust and hesitancy, is that in clinical trials, there is definitely an informed consent, which is part of the clinical trial. It's a big part of the the clinical trial. So you would not be enrolled in a clinical trial unless you had informed consent that you had consented to be a part of a clinical trial. So you would know, just to clarify that point as well.
Right. And if
absolutely, and I can certainly attest to that because, in the work that I do, we view a lot of clinical trial consents just to make sure they have that appropriate language in there to safeguard the patient. So I think that's absolutely right. Dr. Richardson here, and jump on in.
Yeah, I just wanted to just add that, even though, the millions of people that have taken the vaccine now are not formally required to provide any information, certainly if anyone is having an adverse event, there is a reporting system. It's called the VII system. And you get that, even if you go to a pharmacy or wherever you go, they tell you that, if you have any symptoms or anything, they track that. So, and they pull together all that information to see how the vaccine is working in real life. So, it's not as rigorous as like if you are in a clinical trial, but certainly, if you have a symptom or you go to the doctor or you do anything like that, it must be reported. So there is a way to really get a lot of data around people who have had the vaccine. And so far it's been very good.
So let's talk a little bit about hesitancy that's caused by the fact that some people already have underlying conditions or they're concerned about the health. I've heard the questions of, well, I have allergies, and so I'm not sure that I should take the vaccine, or, I'm breastfeeding, or I'm pregnant, or is it going to cause infertility? Can one or both of you speak to kind of if I already have some health conditions or some health concerns, whether the vaccine is something that I should be taking?
Yeah, so I'll start, and then David, you can jump in too as well. I mean, in terms of, one of the questions we always get is does the vaccine cause infertility? And the CDC really has posted some information on their site about this, saying that there's really no scientific evidence to suggest that the vaccine could cause infertility in women. And also, just in general, infertility is really not known to occur as a result of the natural COVID-19 disease. And so there have been a lot of reports on social media, and I just want to take a moment here to say that, we've got, as a community and as people of color, we've got to be very clear that we don't rely on Dr. Google for our medical information. I think that's so very important because, unfortunately, many of the health disparities that we already have are only going to be exacerbated by listening to, information that is inaccurate. So I just want to put a plug out there because a lot of this information that we're finding is on social media. And I will tell you that there are many theories about how it's getting there, but it doesn't seem to be, being put on there to help our community. So let me just say that. So these reports on social media have falsely asserted that the vaccine could cause infertility in women. And, we really think it's a miss for women to, suffer a serious and life-threatening disease as a result of a false assertion. So The best news and the best way to do it is talk to a trusted medical professional if you have concerns. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Your unique circumstance needs to be considered before you take any vaccine, whether that relates to allergies or any comorbid conditions as well. I would say just in general, as I said earlier, many of the conditions that plague our communities, whether it's heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, those make it even more important for you to get a vaccine. But of course, depending on your particular condition, you should always talk to your healthcare provider if you have any concerns. As it relates to allergies, certainly you should really, again, talk to your doctor about your specific allergies. We have had some people have issues with the vaccine, but not many. And so I think it's really important for you to talk to your doctor. If you have serious allergic reactions to vaccines, you should certainly talk to your doctor before you get this one. I don't know, David, if you want to add anything to this.
I think you hit it all. Appreciate that.
So one other question. So how long does the protection last? So we're getting these vaccines now. I'm someone who get my annual flu vaccine. And so just, thinking ahead, is this going to be something that's annual for us? Will it be something like our booster shots where we only have to get those every so many years? What knowledge do you guys have to share with us about that topic?
I think we're learning. Sorry.
Go ahead, David.
We're learning. I mean, at the end of the day, no one knows. I don't think the answer to that question. But again, the value of having these controlled clinical trials is that they're on the front edge, right? Because these individuals have been, enrolled since July, right? And they'll be checking their antibody titers and see where they are. And as well as, of course, the variants may have a role to play in this as to what's coming out now, or at the time in which they're going to be looking at that data to see if there's something new that we might want to do or change. But it's an evolving game, and we won't know, I don't think, until we really start to get some data back from those folks in the clinical trials who are being followed. Dr. Dara.
No, you're absolutely right. We just don't know. That's the honest answer. We don't know yet.
And so in the clinical trials, how long have you guys been watching people? Like, we know that, I think, Dr. Blackwell, you indicated that you guys had already been working on, portions of the vaccine before COVID even hit. How long have you kind of been watching folks in clinical trials?
So again, I'll start with that, and Dr. Dara, please come along if there's something I forget. But I think our, Pfizer's phase 3 clinical trial started in July of last year. And so it ran from July basically through November is when they submitted the data to the FDA for the potential emergency use authorization, and which was achieved in like a month later in December. So July is when they started the larger clinical trial, the phase 3 clinical trial. And so it's been, almost 9 months now. So that's what we know, and I believe we were one of the first ones. Johnson & Johnson and or Moderna were probably close behind, but since we got the emergency use first, we were probably the first to get the the cohort done. So somewhere in the last 9 months is when we really started in earnest getting the data back from those first subjects.
Okay. Reverend Hayes, I want to pull you back in the conversation for a couple of things. Have you been seeing in the community a shortage of the vaccine being available, or is the hesitancy? Have you seen issues where individuals who want the vaccine haven't been able to get it, whether it's the transportation issue or the technology issue or the volume of the vaccine that's available? We know that it's been being rolled out in various stages and every state is doing it differently, right? But can you speak to that piece? And then the other piece that I would ask you to speak to is how do we change hearts, right? We talked about the trust factor and how we're really going to need to get people's trust in order to move the needle in this area. And so, you being a spiritual leader, how do you change hearts?
So to your first question, Attorney Frazier, we are seeing some difficulty in access. As I just want to reiterate, my hospital is right on the western near suburbs of Chicago. Chicago is a city with a certain degree of segregation. People definitely belong in their neighborhoods. I think would be a fair way to describe Chicago. So it's a diverse town, but people don't live side by side across communities. And what we have noticed is that if you have a population like ours, especially our seniors who don't have necessarily the best or the fastest or connection to the internet, it's really hard to sign up for an appointment, and they're getting nosed out of their appointments. We are hearing reports of people from one area of town going to another area of town to get vaccinated. Last night on the news, there was a report of vaccine available in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and people from Chicago were driving up to Kenosha, Wisconsin to be vaccinated. And the news reporter said that that was all right at that time, but they're going to put safeguards in place so that people from Illinois stay in Illinois. So that is a concern, and we're working on. My effort, my project is a partnership between our hospital and community-based organizations, as well as some representatives from the county. And so we have access to vaccine, but getting people out there and helping them to know how to access and where to go and when to get there is a challenge, and it moves. It kind of moves and evolves. So it's an ongoing challenge for us. As to your second question about changing hearts, I like something that and it's been alluded to before in our conversation, that Dr. Ayla Stanford had to say. We can't just sit there and accept this narrative that Black people don't want to be vaccinated. But Dr. Stanford said she just saw that there were two real important things that we need to do to encourage and persuade people to take the vaccine. One is, where am I going to get vaccinated? Some people don't want to go to a hospital. They want to go, they would prefer to go to a place that's comfortable, that's familiar, and that's close. And the second thing is, well, who's going to do the vaccinating? I want somebody to vaccinate me that looks like me. I want somebody. Like in this comic book, one of the characters in the comic book makes reference to Dr. Kizney, to say, here's a scientist, Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett is a Moderna scientist who helped develop, was on the team to help develop the vaccine for Moderna. I think that's just inestimably important for people to know that Black people helped develop the vaccine and are helping to vaccinate people so that they can feel comfortable taking something into their body that they really otherwise know nothing about. So yes, changing hearts is, I think, about spreading education. I referenced the nurse in Baton Rouge, Louisiana earlier, Carla Brown. Her story is very compelling. This is a woman who is a nurse in a hospice setting. And because she was caring for an elderly population, she contracted coronavirus and spread it to her husband. She said, you know, the love of my life, and he passed away. And she, in honor of his life, she dedicated herself to mobilizing and getting people vaccinated in her community. And she got some other healthcare workers with her and started calling people. And she said she had to have some heart-to-heart conversations with people. And she said, and it's firm love. You know, sometimes people are resistant, but I talk to them and I ask them tough questions. Do you want to go to your grave early, or do you want to live your fullest life because you need this vaccine? It's your protection. And I think that trusted people in the community can break down a lot of barriers that a PSA or someone who just having availability to a Walgreens or CVS just doesn't get the job done.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those words of wisdom, and thank you for your commitment to advocating in the community in this way. I also want to thank Dr. Blackwell and Dr. Richardson Heron. This has been an amazing conversation, and we absolutely have to keep the conversation going. We recognize that there are a number of questions that we did not get to tonight. And so what we plan to do is do some FAQs, and we will have those sent out to all the attendees for the questions that we didn't. But at this point, I'm going to turn the program over to Taisha Miley, who's going to take us on to the next step. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was our pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for your participation in this very informative and timely panel this evening, and for all of the information that was provided to all of us and the attendees. We do look forward to receiving the FAQs that will be coming in response to a number of the questions that were provided. At this time, we will begin recognizing those individuals who have been chosen as the living legends within Region 7 as part of this town hall series. So I thank you all for attending, and I thank the participants and the living legends who are able to be present this evening. So I will begin at this time I'm going to begin with Mr. Wiley Adams. And just to give you some backgrounds, because you all are not here for me, I am going to be very brief with this bio, although his accomplishments are significant and lengthy and worthwhile and noteworthy. All of the recipients or honorees this evening have noteworthy and significant contributions to the legal community in which they serve, as well as to the National Bar through various roles of leadership and membership throughout the organization. Mr. Wiley Adams is currently retired, and congratulations, was Vice President and Chief Legal Officer with Prudential, known as PGIM, their Prudential Group, the global investment management businesses of Prudential Financial, and had offices around the world, and is one of the 10 largest investment managers in the world, with approximately $1.5 trillion in assets under management as of December 31st of 2020. Mr. Adams led a team of approximately 80 lawyers in support of the operations of the company globally. And Mr. Adams is a lifetime member of the National Bar Association, a former regional director of Region 7, and also a member of the National Bar Institute, and a board member or foundation member also with the Cook County Bar Association over the course of his legal career. And at this time, I introduce you to Mr. Wiley Adams.
Thank you, Taisha. It's always honor to be recognized, and it's always a special privilege to be recognized by my peers. I'll be very brief in my remarks. Apart from thank you, I'll focus on my unrelenting message, which is to make sure that we support the NBA. So if you've already given, give some more. If you don't have any more to give, then volunteer some time, and please support the organization. It's been very good to me, and I hope through it to give to others. Thank you for this nice honor.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. We do like brevity, especially trying to be mindful of everyone's time. Our next honoree is Ms. Sharon Strickland. Ms. Strickland is a retired individual, again, just living life. In 2013, she retired as supervising administrative law judge for the Illinois Department of Employment Security. She has served several roles within the National Bar Association, including most recently as the awards committee chair under the leadership of President Drayton. She is an inductee of the National Bar Association's 2019 Fred Gray Jr. Hall of Fame. And at this time, I would turn it over to Miss Sharon. It appears that maybe we lost her. She was on earlier. I'll research that. In the interim, as we do, we pivot. I am going to now introduce Mr. Michael Hubbard. Mr. Hubbard is a trial attorney with litigation experience in guardianship. Oh, it looks like Ms. Strickland just joined back in. Sharon, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, we can't see you, but that's fine. We can hear you. Please feel free to give your remarks.
Greetings to my National Bar Association and Region 7 family. I'm Sharon Strickland of Chicago, Illinois, and past president of the NBA affiliate, Cook County Bar Association. I value this honor of being recognized as a living legend. My legacy of service to the NBA and the CCBA, our legal community, has no doubt contributed to the longevity, the strength, and empowerment of these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Strickland. As I was indicating, Michael Hubbard has experience in guardianship, wills, trusts, criminal law, white collar crime. He previously served as the Assistant General Counsel for the City of Bellwood Public School System. He also is very actively involved in his fraternity and has served as legal counsel for their needs as well. At this time, I turn this matter over to Mr. Michael.
Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be designated a living legacy. I've been a strong supporter of NBA for a long time. You know, I really forgot that in terms of my activity and support, I was parliamentarian for the Cook County Bar Association for a number of years. And as such, I learned one important thing, and that is my role is to be seen and not heard. So my remarks will be very, very limited. Again, thank you so much. This is truly an honor, and it's truly appreciated. And I just hope that we can continue this legacy and also solve this COVID-19 issue and problem that we have so that we can all get vaccinated, get our economy back, and try and live the way we would hope to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Now I would like to recognize, as Regional Director Douglas referred to you as Mayor Freeman Wilson. At this time, I would like you all to know that Ms. Freeman Wilson was the mayor of her hometown of Gary, Indiana from 2012 to 2019. She previously served as Indiana Attorney General, the director of the Indiana Civil Rights Commission, and the presiding judge over Gary City Court and the CEO of the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. She currently serves as president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League. At this time, Mrs. Karen Freeman Wilson.
Thank you, Ty, and thank you, Director Douglas. What an honor to be in the company of these esteemed honorees, many of whom I consider mentors and friends. And so I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing here, probably because I've been a professional vagabond. But I do want to thank our president, our national president, and the NBA for this honor, and say that I bring you greetings from the James Kimbrough Bar Association. I have one foot on each side of the state line. And so I'm serving in Chicago now and look forward to joining with the Cook County Bar, and just want to say that the NBA means so much to so many, and I'm honored to count myself among that number. And thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman Wilson. At this time, I'm going to introduce you all to Mr. Nathaniel Lee, who has the distinguished pleasure of having most recently served as a vice president with the National Bar Association. And in his professional capacities, when he's not volunteering for our organization, he has been a former co-general counsel for the Democratic National Committee, chair of the Marion County Bar Association for approximately 25 years. And he's been recognized as one of the top 5 trial lawyers in Indiana in 2010. He has also been a legal ethics investigator since 1986. And at this time, I introduce you to Mr. Nathaniel Lee. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ty, and thank the committee, but a special thank to the officers, the directors, and particularly the staff of the National Bar Association, the folks that works every day to make the organization, make us all proud of what they're doing. I witnessed firsthand the hard work that they've done, particularly in my capacity as an officer of the NBA. And also, I'd like to thank the committee. I think it's important that we all try to improve the plight of Black lawyers. And I really applaud the effort of all the honorees for doing the outstanding job that you've done. And again, thank you very much for this outstanding honor, and I feel truly blessed to receive it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. At this time, I have the privilege of giving some background information regarding Judge Carr Darden. Now, Judge Carr Darden is a senior judge in Indiana, and he has previously served in several judicial roles, including municipal court, superior court, and appellate court. He also started a scholarship program in his law school in his name, and he served 18 years on the bench. He retired from the Court of Appeals on his 75th birthday, which was required at the time on July 21st, 2012. He remains a senior judge, and in that time span, from the beginning of his career to now, he has written approximately 3,000 opinions. He continues to be actively involved in the Marion County Bar Association, his local community, and his church, and he encourages everyone, no matter the age, to keep giving and serving. At this time, I turn it over to Ms. Judge Carr Darden.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Good evening. I consider it an honor, privilege. I just don't know how many accolades I can say to be considered a living legend. It's certainly better than a dead legend. My entire career, I think, has been spent towards trying to see what I could do to elevate my people, treat my people with dignity, with respect, to make sure that all the rights and privileges that they were entitled to were granted to them. I've always felt that the best example that you can give is to live it. And I've tried to do that. Nate Lee and I go back several years, close to 40 now. I've been on the bench for over 30 years. I've been practicing for over 50 years. My idea is not to retire completely, but to continue to work hard. And when I look at my Caucasian attorneys, judges, even at the age of 85 or 90 years old, they're still trying to do something positive to promote justice. And that's what I intend to do. As long as God will continue to bless me and bless my family, that I hope is going to be my legacy. And I'm hoping that young lawyers would take advantage of the scholarship fund that my wife and I have established at my law school. And as long as I'm alive, and I certainly intend to put it into a trust fund, that scholarship fund will be funded each year. And I hope that it will be one that will last for at least another 50 years. But I've been blessed so very much. And I tell you what, continue the good work. Without the NBA, I often wonder, where would we be today? I tell my colleagues on the bigger bar, in Annapolis Bar, which is almost 5,000 members, that in many respects, you created the Marion County Bar because our forerunners were not permitted to participate in the Annapolis Bar. And as a result, we created the Marion County Bar. It has been a blessing and a privilege. And I just hope and I pray that the young Afro-American lawyers and lawyers of color will continue to support the National Bar Association. And if possible, give back more than you have received. Thank you very much. Continue the good work.
Thank you, Judge Cardarden. Our next honoree is Patricia Brown Holmes. She unfortunately had a conflict this evening, but what I would share with you about Patricia Brown Holmes is that she is a managing partner at Riley Safer Homes in Kansilla, located in the Chicago area. She is a managing partner at that firm, and she has practiced law on both sides of the bench in courtrooms at every level, serving as an associate judge of the Circuit Court of Cook County, assistant U.S. attorney of the Northern District of Illinois, assistant state's attorney for Cook County, and chief assistant corporation counsel for the city of Chicago. So we do applaud Patricia Brown Holmes and recognize her as a living legend this evening. And thank you for indulging me as we showed her photo due to her conflict this evening. And next, I will discuss Justin Shelvin Louise Marie Hall, who for many of you in the region don't really need an introduction or a biographical sketch. But for those of you in attendance who may not be attorneys or judges, please know that Justice Shelvin Louise Marie Hall was the first African-American woman to serve as chair of the executive committee, presiding justice of the Illinois Appellate Court of the First District. She retired in December of 2020 after 30 years of judicial service. Justice Hall was the first woman to serve on the executive committee of the Supreme Court of Illinois' Judicial Conference. Justice Shelvin Hall serves in many capacities on the National Bar Association over the years. And at this time, she has a message to share with you. Thank you.
I was in the room when it happened in 1981, and Thurgood Marshall said, "We must never forget that the only real source of power that we as judges can tap is the respect of the people. To our remarkable president, C.K. Hoffler, the struggle does indeed continue, and C.K. is our most worthy warrior. To the officers, board members of the NBA, to my friend and regional director, Ellen Douglas, my colleagues and friends all. My unmitigated delight is evident at the receipt of this recognition as an NBA living legend. I am ever appreciative of the respect and the kindness the NBA has shown me from youth to elderhood. My journey with the NBA began in 1972 when we started the law student section, and then later the young lawyers section. And it was my joy to serve as the first woman president of that section. And then we started the women lawyers section. And I was chair of the administrative law section and served for the better part of 2 decades on the NBA board. I was then elected national vice president and ultimately chair of the Judicial Council Division. The National Bar Association has my heart and a great deal of my money too. Please know that my gratitude is without end. God bless you, one and all, and thank you again for this wonderful recognition.
Thank you all for your attendance this evening. I wanted to extend remarks regarding the upcoming international summit. I know I did mention Gertrude Rush at the beginning, but we also have an international summit, which will be on May 14th through the 16th of this year, also virtually. And you can register for that by going to our website at nationalbar.org, as well as for the Gertrude Rush Awards and Mid-Year Conference. I see President Hoffler. I will turn it over to you for concluding remarks.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Taisha, for this great program. I am just humbled to be again in the presence of extraordinary warriors, trailblazers, and living legends whose shoulders we stand on. I personally stand on their shoulders. I want to thank and congratulate each and every one of you and tell you that but for you, the NBA would not be the robust organization that it is. But for you, untold numbers of African-American young lawyers, judges, law students, law professors would not feel that they can achieve because you have achieved. But for you, the greater population, the non-African-American population, would not know what excellence is, and that African-American lawyers and jurists are outstanding and can achieve the excellence that we know we can, but it's but for you sending the message, branding our organization, branding the lives of African-American lawyers. This country would probably have a different perception. I'm going to steal from Judge Carr Darden's presentation. He said, where would we be without the NBA? And that is so true for all of us. But I'm going to turn it around and say, where would we be without Wiley Adams, without Sharon Strickland, without Michael Hubbard, without Karen Freeman Wilson, without Nathaniel Lee, without Judge Carr Darden, without Patricia Brown Holmes, and without Justice Shelvin Hall? Where would we be? We would not be in such a good place with such robust role models without them, without their contribution. And I would note, in talking about Justice Shelvin Hall, she and her sister, very, very active members of the National Bar Association. And as far as I know, the only 2 African-American sisters who sat at the same time on a Court of Appeals. So thank you all so much. I just wanted to recognize the fine work of good Taisha, of Akua, of Ellen Douglas, who just serves tirelessly. Ellen, thank you for all that you do. And for anyone who touched this program that is so critical to our community, I want to say thank you. To the ministers who spoke and who preached, I want to say thank you. And I will just share as a point of personal privilege, I have taken my COVID shot. I didn't have any hesitation whatsoever. And I had just I've got some mild symptoms, but it's never going to stop me because we have a mission in our community, which is to serve the mission. That is the mission of the National Bar Association, to serve, elevate our community, and be those purveyors of justice, be those who give guidance to our community. And on COVID-19, where so many in our community have died or infected, we don't have the right to say, no, let's leave that to someone else. We must step up and we must serve as role models and preach as lawyers to our community about how to say, yes, I want to live. I want to live. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for sharing this program.